Hello again. So, staying with two-point perspective, there was just a couple of little exercises that I'd like to share with you. Again, these you might be familiar with, but if not, they're always really fun. As with the last module, I'll be using the same Rhodia Touch aquarelle watercolor sketchbook, spiral bound. It's great paper. The spiral bound is really helpful. So I hope you find this next module helpful and, hopefully inspiring. So what I've done here, just mapped out a building. I've got eye level, I've got 2 vanishing points. Building's rectangular, it's longer than it is, it's quite narrow. So this is just really handy, and I do apply it into my sketching, which I'll show you at the end. As I said, I don't tend to draw in two-point perspective, but what's really useful is trying to think about what the midpoint is in that elevation. And it's something I always ask my students. So if we're thinking halfway, perhaps it's around here. I don't know, this is what they would say. We have a guess, we think about where it is. But actually, I'm sure some of you know, if we strike a diagonal, I'm drawing this quite roughly, between the 4 points, that is my midpoint. And I think this is probably the handiest hint that I just think it's really interesting, that because obviously this building is receding as it's going towards the vanishing point, but it's near on impossible to get that point without using some of these sort of, I guess it's maths. So again, we could do the same on this elevation, and then our midpoint is about there. So if we take it a bit further, and actually if we think this is actually a 2-storey building with a pitch roof, we carry that centre line up and give it quite a high pitch. And then if we go to there, that's your gable. And then if we go back to that vanishing point, about there, that's giving us our ridge line. And the only thing we have to do is get that angle and duplicate it here. So it's sort of going up something like that. And then where it hits the ridge, that's giving us our roof. Quite a long house, maybe it's 2 houses, because what we can then do, we can actually divide it into quarters. So maybe it's a terraced run. I find that really useful when I'm out sketching. It also works in 1-point perspective. As long as we've got that shape, we can do our diagonals and we can find our centre point. So if I'm looking at, here's a sketch. This was really in the summer, actually. I was very lucky to be in Singapore. And I've got this building elevation here. It's a busy city street. And I've tried to find the midpoint. So I've done my diagonals. I've not felt the need to add anything else to that plane, because my sort of areas of interest, perhaps more what's going on around here. But, it's just to show that it works. And here, this is a Manchester scene, and I've done the same. So I've got these flags. So originally I'd drawn 1, 3 and 5. But to get the midpoint, I'd use diagonals. So it helps me space things out when I'm actually sitting there looking at the view. So I think it's a really useful thing to know, and it really helps me with my sketches. I'm drawing this on the Rhodia watercolor cold press paper, but it's taking pencil really well because it's really smooth. But let's just draw another quick example, but again, sort of taking it one step further. So say I've got my ground line, and again, I'm just going to draw some sort of building plane. This is only relating to 1 vanishing point. So this actually can be done in 1 or 2-point perspective, but we've got that plane. So say I divide it into 2. I'm dividing it into 4. So there we are, we've got 4 planes. Or I should say 4 sections on that elevation. So this is just by eye, I'm not drawing it I'm not working this out mathematically, but say I want to give those lines a bit of structure. So making them slightly bigger as they get nearer to me. So this isn't science, this is just a bit trying to work out. So again, this is the sort of thing I'd be doing in my sketchbook. And actually that's probably going to be much thicker because it's nearer, but something like that. So what I'm going to do here, and this is really useful as well, I'm just going to strike a line. And then what I'm going to do, so we've got these 4 rectangles that actually they are equal in size, even though they don't appear to be, but that's perspective for you. So say I strike the middle of each and go up. So I'm making, actually let me do that in a different colour. So I'm just doing a diagonal within my box. A bit harder when they're bigger, but approximately there. So we've got our 4 boxes. And then if we will go up from the centre of each box, you might know where I'm going with this. And then perhaps what we'll do is we'll give another line above. That's our plane. And then basically what that does, so that point becomes the top of an arch because we know it's centered. So that, even though each one's different, they are all exactly the same, you know, and there's so much you can do. You know, basically working out from this, including, well, I mean, this is just the start of a whole series of things you can do. This is a drawing, this is a done at Coldrop's Yard in London, and I am sort of using it. So again, I'm not a slave to the logic or the principles, but it's really clever stuff and it's really good fun. And that just very simple, being able to find the midpoint of buildings really helps me and my sketching practice. So I hope you find that helpful.